Coming up on this Monday edition of Newsline at noon, North Korea says it will send its cheering squad to the 2014 Incheon Asian Games in its latest peace offensive to South Korea. China steps up its protests against Japan's drive to whitewash its wartime atrocities as it marks the anniversary of the 1937 Sino-Japanese War on a much larger scale than usual. First, the Israeli Prime Minister urges Arabs in his country to help contain the latest rioting after 6 Jewish suspects were arrested over the brutal killing of a Palestinian teenager. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
It's noon Monday, July 7th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Ju.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this lunchtime. North Korea says it'll send a cheering squad to this year's Asian Games that will take place in South Korea's port city of Incheon from mid-September.
All eyes are now on whether the move will truly turn out as Pyongyang claims to be a conciliatory gesture to mend strained inter-Korean ties. Hwang Ji-hye reports.
It seems like North Korea is once again reaching out to South Korea. In a government announcement Monday, the North said it will send a cheering squad to the upcoming 17th Asian Games that will take place in Incheon, a port city in western South Korea. The North said it'll send the squad along with its athletes to improve inter-Korean relations and help create the mood for further exchanges between the two Koreas. It added the move shows Pyongyang's commitment to unification within the nation and on the global stage. If all goes to plan, it would be the 4th time for the North to send a cheering squad to a sporting event in South Korea. The last time the squad visited was 9 years ago during the 2005 Asian Athletics Championships, also held in Incheon. Officials at Seoul's Unification Ministry say there's no reason to turn down Pyongyang's latest move as the Incheon Asian Games proceed according to international practices. Aside from the cheering squad, the North's announcement also said the two Koreas should put an end to reckless confrontation and open a new chapter of reconciliation. In May, the North said it would send 150 athletes to the Asian Games, which run from September 19th to October 4th. Pundits expect North Korea's participation to raise global awareness of the Games and help to improve inter-Korean relations. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
North Korea has asked a South Korean civic group for assistance following the collapse of an apartment building in Pyongyang 2 months ago. South Korea's Korea Rescue Association said the North asked for help with reconstruction and disease control efforts in early June. That's about a month after a 23-story apartment building collapsed in Pyongyang, claiming hundreds of lives. This is the first time the North has asked a South Korean civic group for disaster relief aid. The group said it's ready to provide the necessary assistance and is awaiting government approval. Seoul's Unification Ministry said the matter is under review and that a decision will be reached within the week. And another story on North Korea, a U.S. expert says Pyongyang could significantly boost its nuclear capacity if it completed work on a light water nuclear reactor currently under construction. U.S. nuclear scientist Charles Ferguson, the president of the Federation of American Scientists, said Pyongyang will be able to produce 30 to 40 kilograms of plutonium each year when the light water reactor at its Yongbyon nuclear complex goes into operation. That is enough to make 5 to 6 nuclear bombs a year. He added that the North already possesses at least 30 kilograms of plutonium. Ferguson added it is important not to neglect the issue and urged Washington to bring Pyongyang back to the negotiating table.
Beijing is continuing its campaign to press Japan to stop denying its past wrongdoings. On this Monday, China marks the 77th anniversary of the start of its second war of resistance against Japan, and it's celebrating this anniversary with its largest related event ever. Shin Se-min reports.
China is commemorating the start of its 8-year war of resistance against the Japanese on a larger scale than ever this year in a protest against Japan's wartime atrocities. On July 7, 1937, the armies of China and Japan engaged in a battle that now marks the beginning of the Second Sino-Japanese War. That battle is known as the Marco Polo Bridge. Chinese defenders were attacked, civilians were slaughtered by gunfire, bombs, and biological weapons, forced laborers died, and women were raped. The Chinese government marks the event every year, but on this day, 77 years later, the commemoration ceremony will be more extensive than ever. Chinese leaders are expected to attend, possibly including President Xi Jinping. The ceremony will also be broadcast by China's CCTV, Xinhua Online, the People's Daily Online, and many other media outlets in the nation, an unusual move, but one that underlines the significance of the event. This comes as China has already started releasing from its state archives written confessions by Japanese war criminals every day for a total of 45 days. One such confession says the Imperial Japanese Army kidnapped 20 women from Korea and China and forced them into prostitution for its troops. Although Beijing has long accused Japan of denying its wartime atrocities, experts say that expanding the scale of this year's anniversary event is a move directed at the Japanese government to offer Japan a clearer picture of history. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has begun taking action following the announcement last week to approve a new constitutional reinterpretation that would allow the right to exercise collective self-defense, which means Japan can come to the military aid of an ally under attack. However, the next steps are unlikely to be smooth sailing for Prime Minister Abe, as our Son Jung-in reports.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has started to take follow-up steps after his decision to reinterpret the country's pacifist constitution to legally permit Japan to engage in collective self-defense. Speaking to reporters Sunday, Abe said he plans to create a new ministerial post which will be in charge of national security legislation to broaden the scope of the self-defense forces' activities. Abe said he would name the minister who will be a person well-versed in security issues to prepare for the large-scale legal revisions during a planned cabinet reshuffle in early September. However, Abe is facing a number of problems. First, his cabinet's approval rating slipped below 48% after his decision last week. In polls conducted by Japan's media outlets, Abe's own approval rating stood at 47.8% in early July, down from 57% in June. It's the first time his rating has slipped below 50% since December. In addition, a lawsuit over the cabinet's decision is expected to be filed by a mayor in Mie Prefecture. Matsusaka Mayor Mitsushige Yamanaka says the move is unconstitutional. He has vowed to call on lawmakers, the heads of other municipalities, and the general public to join his initiative to promote pacifism. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, the top U.S. diplomat for East Asia says Japan will continue to play its part in international efforts to denuclearize North Korea, despite its recent thawing of relations with Pyongyang. In an interview with the Japanese daily Asahi Shimbun over the weekend, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell said Washington believes Japan will pursue its talks with North Korea over the abductee issue in a way that is responsible towards its partners in the denuclearization effort. Tokyo recently announced that it would ease some sanctions on the North, this in return for Pyongyang reinvestigating the abductions of Japanese citizens in the 1970s and 80s. Some watchers had raised concerns this kind of bilateral cooperation between North Korea and Japan could undermine the position of the other member states of the six-party talks to resolve North Korea's missile and nuclear issues.
And with crucial by-elections looming at the end of the month, President Park Geun-hye is looking to rally support around the ruling party by trying to break the deadlock at the National Assembly. Inviting the floor leaders of the two rival parties for a meeting at the presidential office, the president is expected to ask them to quickly pass her government restructuring proposal, which includes bills related to April's Haeodo ferry disaster. Kim Young-gil reports.
President Park Geun-hye will meet with the floor leaders of Korea's two main rival political parties and chief policymakers on Thursday to urge them to pass pending bills and settle unresolved issues. The meeting will be the first of its kind since President Park took office in February last year. She is expected to call for bipartisan cooperation in the passage of urgent bills, such as a government reorganization proposal and a special bill aimed at determining the truth behind the deadly Haeodo ferry disaster in April, and supporting the victims' families. The government reorganization bill contains a proposal by President Park to abolish the Korea Coast Guard, which is under fire for its poor response to the ferry sinking that resulted in the deaths of more than 300 people. President Park also plans to push for the passage of bills aimed at increasing social welfare and removing excessive business regulations. The president needs to move quickly in her reform drive to rally support of voters ahead of crucial by-elections on July 30th. With politicians jockeying for the elections, the rival parties are expected to clash this week at the National Assembly as confirmation hearings for 8 cabinet nominees get underway Monday. Lawmakers from the ruling Saenuri Party are under pressure to ensure all 8 nominees are confirmed to complete President Park's cabinet reshuffle after 2 prime minister candidates withdrew amid allegations of wrongdoing. Opposition lawmakers from the New Politics Alliance for Democracy, on the other hand, are likely to try to block at least 2 cabinet hopefuls. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
It looks like financial institutions in Korea and China have started taking necessary steps to create a direct yuan trading market, one of the major agreements reached on economic cooperation last week during summit talks between the two countries' leaders. Now, the establishment of this market comes amid an exponential increase in the use of the yuan in global trading and payment. Na Hyun-kyung has the details.
One of Korea's biggest financial firms, Uri Bank, is expected to be in charge of promoting sales and marketing for the Korean branch of China's Bank of Communications. The head of the Bank of Communications, which was appointed as the Chinese yuan clearing bank in Seoul just last week, predicts the amount of transactions settled in yuan by Korean businesses will nearly quadruple to 300 billion yuan, or roughly $48 billion a year in the near future. Analysts say this falls in line with China's push for increasing the use of renminbi by banks and businesses in international transactions. The Hyundai Research Institute says China's currency is increasingly preferred to the Japanese yen in global trade thanks to its large economic scale and stability. The Korea Institute of Finance also says, as of October last year, the amount of global trade financing settled in Chinese yuan stood at nearly 9%, outpacing the euro and the yen, and points out that the rate of the yuan's internationalization is 48 times faster than the yen's in the 1980s. In Korea, expectations are high that President Park Geun-hye and Chinese leader Xi Jinping's agreement last week to soon let the two countries' businessmen settle their trade bills in their own currencies will encourage more direct yuan trading. However, some experts also warn that the growing presence of the yuan will deepen Seoul's economic dependence on Beijing, though it could help ease pressure on the Korean won's appreciation against the dollar. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye is encouraging Korean firms to take full advantage of Central Asian nations' desire to learn from the experiences of Korean manufacturing, IT and plant industries. At a debate attended by the economic delegation from her recent trip to Central Asia, President Park said that by sharing their know-how with the region, Korean businesses will be able to build cooperation not only in those fields, but also in transportation, textiles, agriculture and education, vowing to continue her economic diplomacy wherever needed around the world. President Park said cooperating with China and Russia will also be essential to realizing her Eurasia initiative, which is trying to link energy and logistics infrastructure across the continent. Now it looks as though 3G is about to become yesterday's news as more smartphone makers are moving to adopt LTE, the standard for wireless communication of high-speed data. New research shows that sales of LTE chipsets could soon account for more than half, or 54% of the entire baseband market, according to the US-based market research firm Strategy Analytics. Sales of LTE baseband chipsets will reach $13 billion this year. That's nearly twice the figure from last year, when it was roughly $6.8 billion. Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Monday. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the News Center.
Eunice, Israeli police have arrested and are now questioning suspects who are thought to be involved in last week's killing of a Palestinian teenager.
You're right, Jinju. Tensions peaked over the weekend after autopsy results were released that showed that Palestinian teenager was burned alive by the perpetrators. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised a firm response. Here's Connie Kim with the story.
Israel has arrested several suspects over the abduction and murder of Palestinian teenager Mohammed Abu Kudair. Security sources say they have 6 suspects in custody, but this could rise depending on how the investigation goes. Those arrested, who are known to be Jews, are being questioned by Israel's Shin Bet security agency, but no further information has been released. Lawyers for the suspects say they have no connection to the teenager's murder.
We do not yet know all the details according to all the publications and what we have understood. It is difficult at this stage to understand if there is a connection between the suspects and this specific incident.
Investigators, however, believe Kudair was murdered by far-right Jews as revenge for 3 Israeli teenagers who were killed last month.
They burned my son. They will not bring back my son. My son's blood is worth more.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he would respond firmly to the killing and use all means available to bring the perpetrators to justice. He added that he would not allow extremists to ignite conflict in the region. However, tensions between Israel and Palestinians are bubbling over. Israel launched airstrikes on 10 sites in the Gaza Strip late Sunday in response to rocket fire directed at Israel. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Turning now to East Africa, dozens have been killed in Uganda, where its forces say they repelled an uprising by tribal militias. Violence erupted in 3 oil-rich districts bordering Congo, where tensions had been rising over claims to land believed to hold as much as 3.5 billion barrels of crude. Armed rebels stormed army and police stations on Saturday. By Sunday, at least 41 rebels were reported to have been killed and 20 arrested. The tribal militia killed at least 12 people, including 3 policemen. Uganda has sent army reinforcements to the region. A video purporting to show the leader of the self-dubbed Islamic State has surfaced, and if true, it would be a very public debut for a man known to be extremely secretive. The 22-minute video posted on websites and social media showed the alleged Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi leading prayers at Iraq's Great Mosque in the northern city of Mosul. The man called on all Muslims to follow him and the caliphate in Iraq and Syria, claiming those who do not obey will be regarded as sinners. Iraqi and U.S. officials are working to determine the identity of the man. And finally, air travelers to the U.S., take note. The next time you're on a direct flight to the United States, officials could ask you to power up your electronics to check they aren't explosives in disguise. New airport screening guidelines released by the U.S. Transportation Security Administration warn that devices that do not turn on won't be allowed on board, and the traveler could be subject to more screening. These guidelines come as U.S. authorities are concerned with a new type of bomb believed to be under development by al-Qaeda terrorists designed to bypass current security procedures. The list of affected airports has not been released.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea. Connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on Newsline at noon with Mark Broom and Ju.
I'm Ju.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about 11. Now, despite efforts over the years, it still appears that the roads here in Korea are far from the safest in the world, as the number of deaths caused by traffic accidents is the second highest among the 31 OECD member countries. The OECD said Monday that the death rate in Korea as of 2011 stood at 105 per 1 million people. Poland had the highest number of fatal accidents with 109. This is in the OECD. And the UK, Britain, had the lowest number of deaths at 31. Although Korea's death toll decreased by nearly 37% in the span of just 10 years, it has not improved as much as other nations. In fact, the number of deadly traffic accidents in Spain plunged by nearly 67% over the same period.
Noise-induced hearing loss is becoming more prevalent here in Korea. There have been a number of discoveries and advances that have increased our understanding of this kind of hearing loss, but an effective cure has yet to be developed. Researchers here in the nation, however, say they may have the answer. Kim Min-ji reports.
Lee Chang-gon has worked in an engine room for over 30 years, something that has had a definite effect on his hearing. He complains of his ears ringing and he cannot make out little sounds.
I feel slightly deaf. It also feels like there's something in my ear. I can't hear quiet noises.
He is being diagnosed with noise-induced hearing loss, a condition where cilia inside the ear becomes damaged and cannot pick up sound. And with more and more people listening to music through earphones, the number of younger patients, those from 10 to 19 years of age with a hearing impairment, has jumped nearly 30% in just 5 years. Making matters worse, once the symptoms start, it may be too late.
Noise-induced hearing loss refers to a condition when the functions of the cochlea deteriorate. Once it's damaged, it's hard to recover.
However, local researchers have found that a substance used in asthma medication may help. In this experiment, the researchers exposed a mouse to 112 decibels of noise for 3 hours and observed changes in its cilia. They found that an infectious substance that causes asthma becomes active when exposed to noise and increases the number of enzymes that damage the cilia. The researchers then injected asthma medication into the mouse and found that the damage to the cilia was minimized.
When exposed to noise, an enzyme known as MMP3 is released, and this can lead to hearing loss. The asthma treatment showed a protective response.
When the specific substance is extracted from the asthma treatment, the researchers say it can be made into new medication that can prevent noise-induced hearing loss from worsening. The findings have been published in the U.S. journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Well, northern part of Korea will have a soupy day today. It will be hotter than yesterday, so be sure to gear up with items to keep you cool in the hot weather. But the whole nation will not have to worry about monsoon rain this week, and we expect to have a good amount of sun, while the southern provinces will see some clouds hanging around throughout the day. And it seems like the powerful tropical cyclone Noguri is estimated to impact Kyushu, Japan within the next 2 days. The Korean peninsula, especially the areas down south, should also be indirectly affected by it. I mean, even Jeju will see strong winds and high waves this afternoon. So please do keep that in mind. And here are the readings for today. Behind the capital will rise to 32, while Daegu and Gwangju will have a high of 28. And Busan should make it to 26 this afternoon. And for other regions, down on Jeju and Daejeon should see a high of 26 and 30 respectively. And Dokdo will reach 25. And for the weather outlook here in Seoul over the next 5 days, we have a mix of sun and clouds are in store, and temperatures will be hovering 30 degrees Celsius. Well, that's all for me today, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Well, those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Mark and I'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching.